Is Throne and Liberty worth playing in 2025? As someone who has close to 1000 hours played in this game, with most gear maxed out, it is safe to say I have enough experience when it comes to this game. So is this MMORPG worth playing? Let's first start with the game's story mode. Throne and Liberty ticks the box of having a great storyline and stunning cutscenes that is engaging for players. The storyline is roughly 28 hours long of gameplay and cutscenes. It's packed with adventure, fantasy, deceit, betrayal, emotion, and music. It has a few puzzles within the storyline that provide a decent challenge but nothing too complex, along with moments where you need to be stealthy and undetected. It's definitely a high quality storyline for a free-to-play game, so for those worried about the quality of its story mode as a free-to-play game, you do not need to be concerned. And the next big factor is character customization available. The game has a very detailed appearance customization, so for those who have this as a priority, you will not be disappointed. To add to this, it has many character skins to choose from, and new skins are added almost every other month. You can buy these skins with real money or save up as a free-to-play by selling your unwanted looted gear to the auction house. For a more detailed explanation on this, check Lucent Guides. There's also a huge selection of weapon skins, adding to character personalization. You will also have collectibles on this game, one being Amitoys, which are basically pets that give small bonuses, and the other being morphs. Morphs are what the character turns into when it's in its flying state, swimming state, or sprinting state. Another important factor the game does insanely well is its graphics quality and visual effects. Again, for a game that's free, Throne and Liberty has insane graphics. It competes with all games that have a price tag in the same genre. Not only are the graphics insane, but it has great visual effects and landscapes. A few visual effect examples are the meteor and fire barrage combo with the rapid fire. For landscapes, you have many spots to choose from throughout all stages in the game, along with environment features that are just as good. Now onto the game's combat system. Throne and Liberty has a good combat system in terms of player versus environment. You will have your normal auto attacks that cost no mana. You then have your class skills that you activate as normal with your hotkeys on your skill bar, which is where your main damage will come from. You will also have an item actives hotbar for items like healing crystals, buffs, and other item actives. The next thing to note is your class is dependent on the weapon you are wielding. This is a great feature for those that want to try out other classes' skills, as this means you do not need to create and level up a second character to try out another class's skills. To deal more damage, you will be leveling your character's skills through skill books, which can be obtained via progression and by being crafted. The other option, as with any MMORPG, is to increase your character's offensive stats on your stat page. This will be done by obtaining higher rarity gear and leveling your gear, which is leveled through growth stones that will be obtained from story progression and crafting. Everything mentioned increases your character's combat power, which is how the game measures how powerful your character has become. If you're unsure of what these offensive stats mean, you can always watch a full offensive character stat guide. Next is the defense combat system, which has multiple ways you can reduce or avoid the amount of damage you take. One method being simply having a high evasion stat on your character's stat page, as this will give you a chance to completely avoid the attack the higher the evasion stat is. Again, you can watch a full defensive stat guide if unsure on this part of the game. The next defensive combat mechanic is stand blocking or block rolling on purple boss attacks. The rest of the boss's attacks are mechanics you need to learn on each individual boss. This leads us onto the game's boss dungeon content. There are loads of boss dungeons, from solo boss dungeons to group boss dungeons to much more challenging trial boss dungeons. For your co-op boss dungeon, you have the Dimension Circle dungeons, which are your 1-star, 2-star and 3-star boss dungeons. Each star has increased difficulty, requiring more combat power to enter the dungeon. These bosses give a nice challenge while not being overly difficult. However, if you do not know what you're supposed to be doing on a boss's attack mechanic, then they will be difficult to defeat and punishing for your HP and your team, causing solo or team wipeouts. There'll be loads of boss guides for all bosses, so this is not a problem. For opening your boss chests, you are limited to your boss tokens. These will recharge daily. One thing to note here is the drop rate is very poor from 2-star and 3-star bosses, where there is a 1 in 8 chance to get a purple gear piece and you're only able to loot the chest once per run. All co-op boss dungeons will require you to be in a group to take them down, but once you're well geared, you'll be able to solo some of these dungeons for yourself if the boss doesn't require a group mechanic. You also have solo boss dungeon options on the secret dungeon page. These also present a challenge and require mechanics you need to know or you will be wiped out, so watching boss guides becomes a must unless you don't mind dying multiple times to figure it out for yourself, although this is not recommended. Now on to the end game, and for those interested in the end game, you have a lot of content, from Nebula Island to Abyss Dungeon and contracts to 3-star dungeons to dimensional trials to arc bosses to world bosses to guild bosses to PvP arena to world PvP and finally to guild PvP. However, it does become very grindy in the end game, where you are doing weekly tasks of dungeon contracts, village contracts, boss token burning, abyss token burning, world bosses and nebula farming. Another thing to note is rune farming and artifact farming. The choice is really yours on how grindy the game becomes. On top of this, the game currently has released most of this content. Devs are probably looking into creating new dungeons or content as we speak. Player count is declining, but it's not that important for PvE content, as generally there will be enough players playing for you to party matchmake or world chat group party to create 5-player groups for dungeon raids. The player count decline mainly impacts the PvP side of the game, but there will still be enough players for PvP. It just won't be as large scale, and for PvP arena matchmaking, times will increase. Those looking to PvP at max level or PvP competitively, be warned, as it's not a 1v1 type PvP game and you will need to buy the best gear and max out your secondary stats too, as the players you will be fighting will have brought the best gear and extremely high defensive stats. This includes players who have been playing since the game release, which is 7 months of farming their combat power. Not to mention the maxed out tanks. In some cases you'll miss 70% of your attacks thrown. Its large scale world PvP also has the majority of players with maxed out gear and extremely high defensive stats.